Not all large, luxurious, family-sized 4x4s have to be pretend off-roaders, really more tarmac-orientated. Here's a 5 or 7-seater contender that really can cut it when the going gets rough and has a proper 4x4 heritage with a badge you can trust in this sector. This improved 4th generation Mitsubishi Shogun offers loads of space, decent value for money and an unstoppable feel. Though it can't match the road-going prowess and interior class of German large SUV rivals, it's more practical than any of them. Authentic, capable and very tough, it'll probably outlast you. Mitsubishi likes to see its Shogun as the original large 4x4, an SUV tough enough to venture where others fear to tread, yet offering the interior luxury of a high-end saloon. Back in 1982, when it was first launched, it was the only real option for those unwilling to stretch up to a Range Rover, and sold in prodigious numbers until the 90s arrived, along with a host of new rivals, nearly all of which prioritised a smoother road-going experience. It took until the new millennium for the Shogun to make any attempt to sharpen up its act on tarmac, and even then it continued to buck the luxury 4x4 trend by prioritising ultimate go-anywhere ability over ultimate road-going response. As the decade wore on, comparisons with luxury 4x4s like BMW's X5, the Mercedes M-Class and Audi's Q7 seemed more and more irrelevant. This was something different, like Toyota's Land Cruiser, a really authentic large SUV, designed for people who really wanted to fully exercise its rugged virtues. People who lived in remote areas, people who wanted a tow, people who wanted more than just a lifestyle statement. These folk knew what they were getting with a Shogun, but there weren't enough of them. Hence Mitsubishi's continual attempts to do what it can to broaden this model's appeal, perhaps most notably with a far-reaching package of changes introduced late in 2011, which brought a smarter look inside and out, and perhaps more importantly, a Euro 5 compliant engine. Let's check it out. Climb aboard a Shogun and you're transported back in time to a period when luxury SUVs were SUV first and luxury second. This one's got plenty of tinsel, of course, but none of it disguises the fact that it's a vehicle that would really feel more at home in the Sahara than it does in Surbiton. All of which is rather refreshing in an era where other luxury models in this segment seem to compete to be as car-like as possible, refining themselves to the point where the very last thing you'd want to do would be ever to take one of them seriously off-road. This one, in contrast, is never more comfortable than when venturing off the beaten track. Alright, so despite the Shogun's 11 Paris-Dakar Rally wins, this car isn't the last word in off-road ability, but maybe that's a good thing. Not many of us want to drive around in Land Rover Defenders, after all. What it does offer is a very acceptable compromise between on-road refinement and extreme off-road ability that will be more than satisfactory for most. Under the skin lies a tough, proven AWC all-wheel control system, which works in tandem with a Super Select transfer case. Using a centre differential lock to split the available torque 33-67% front to rear, this enables the Shogun to offer no fewer than 4 different transmission modes, which you select via this extra gear stick to the left of the main auto gearbox selector. 2H is the one that you'll be in most of the time. 2H is two-wheel drive high range, and that's for normal tarmac use. Though on particularly rainy or icy days, you might be tempted at speeds of up to 62 miles an hour to push the selector forward into 4H, or four-wheel drive high range. Off-road, the default setting will be 4HLC, or four-wheel drive high range with centre differential locked, which for sand, dirt or really rough conditions will equalise the torque between front and rear. Now if you go somewhere really gnarly though, you'll need the final setting. That's for LLC, for low range with centre differential locked. which gives you extreme torque for those kind of extreme circumstances. Now match all of this with a really impressive set of off-road credentials and you've got one tough customer. Here, after all, is a vehicle that can wade to depths of up to 700 millimeters. It can climb slopes of up to 48 degrees. It won't topple sideways on a slope that's pushing you at up to 45 degrees. And it can tow up to 3,500 kilograms. Here's one tough customer. The drawback, of course, is that you can't have all of that, yet still get a vehicle that handles the tarmac twisties like a BMW X5. The laws of physics have to tell somewhere. As long as you remember that and approach roadway driving in a relaxed frame of mind, this Shogun can function as perfectly acceptable everyday transport. Under the bonnet lies a double overhead camshaft, 16-valve, turbocharged and intercooled 3.2 litre direct injection engine that's probably the biggest four-cylinder power plant in any current production car. It's got loads of low-down torque and mid-range power. It's not an especially refined unit, it has to be said, but it is man enough to transport nearly 2.3 tons of Japanese real estate from rest to 60 in about 11 seconds on the way to 111 miles an hour. No mean feat. Though fine on major routes, the ride is pretty unsettled on poorer surfaces and sharp, tight turns need to be handled with care. There's an MASTC system that you'll be pretty glad of if you rather unwisely throw this car into a damp, tight bend, expecting it to be some kind of executive estate. Now this is made up of two elements, active stability control and active traction control. The stability side basically sees the engine limiting its power and the brakes being dabbed to try and bring the vehicle back into line if you get out of shape, while the traction side limits wheel slippage and is especially useful if you're starting off on a slippery surface. Though the look of this model has gained a minor spruce up in recent times with a smarter front grille and colour-keyed bumpers, it's a shape that remains instantly familiar with its short overhangs, its upright windscreen, its strong high flanks, its flared wheel arches and its rear door mounted spare wheel. It all combines to remind passers-by that this is no bling smoothie. Instead, it's a car that wears its credentials on its sleeve. Mitsubishi remains one of the few brands still to offer a three-door short wheelbase body style in this sector, but most customers prefer the long wheelbase seven-seater shape that I have here. Now it's a properly big car, nearly 5 metres in length and nearly 2 metres in both width and height. So you'll need a decently sized garage to accommodate it, especially if you are going to habitually fit something like a roof box for, say, ski trips. Now the benefit of those huge dimensions is realised when you want to fill the car with people. Unlike many large SUVs that squeeze in a third seating row, this one accommodates it with ease using an innovative hide and seek seating system whereby the rearmost bench folds easily out of the floor. It's a pity though that you don't get two separate chairs so that when you're travelling six up you can keep one side of the rearmost bench folded and still have a modicum of boot space. As it is, there's very little luggage capacity when all 7 seats are in use. Of course, if you can fold this rearmost bench, then things are a bit different. There's 1,790 litres of total space if you're able to put it flat into the floor. And of course, if you can fold the middle bench as well, then you've got even more still. For completeness, I'll mention that short wheelbase Shogun models have a 1,120 litre boot. But what about if you want to get to these rearmost seats? Well, that should be a fairly straightforward process for all but the very elderly. And once you're there, decent space and a pretty low floor plan height mean that you don't have to sit with your knees up around your ears. Now the middle seat, where there's the option of these DVD rear cinema screens for longer journeys, is quite comfortable for 2 adults, though it'll be less so on long journeys for 3. Which leaves the driving position, an area where little has changed since we first saw this generation Shogun back in 2007. So don't expect too much in terms of modern luxury car-like ambience or soft-touch plastics. You do get things like standard heated seats though, and Mitsubishi has done its best to smarten things up in recent times with better quality upholstery, nicer illumination around the instruments, and a very smart brushed steel look finish around the electric window console on the doors. On a plusher variant like this one, you get lashings of leather, which is nice, and artificial wood inserts, less so. Ultimately though, what really matters is that it all feels like it's been built to last. The Shogun is fairly unique these days in SUV land in offering a short wheelbase 3-door option, variants of which sit in the £30,000 to £35,000 bracket. As far as the 7-seater long wheelbase model is concerned, this one, well, you're looking at pricing that starts at around £33,000, ranging right up to about £42,000. Now, this model's two most obvious rivals in long wheelbase form are probably Toyota's Land Cruiser and maybe even the Land Rover Discovery 4. You pay about £1,000 more for an equivalent Land Cruiser and probably about £3,000 more for a comparable Discovery 4. I'm talking here about entry-level long wheelbase 7-seat models with the automatic gearbox that most customers in this segment want. And it gets better from Mitsubishi's point of view. Plusher versions of both the Toyota and the Land Rover sit well into the £40,000 to £50,000 bracket, making better equipped versions of this Shogun look very good value indeed. Whether you choose a short wheelbase 5-seat or a long wheelbase 7-seat Shogun with either manual or automatic transmission, there's just a single 197 brake horsepower 3.2 litre DID common rail diesel engine on offer. Now, all models get equipment features like 18-inch alloy wheels, black roof rails, a decent alarm system. There's also climate control, electric windows all round and power mirrors. Top models like this one get the MMCS Mitsubishi multi-communication system with its colour screen able to display audio settings and information from the fast and efficient satellite navigation system. Built in here is a 40 gigabyte hard disk drive, able to store up to 2,000 songs. Safety-wise, there are twin front, side and curtain airbags and the MASTC active stability and traction control system, plus of course anti-lock brakes with electronic brake force distribution to make them more effective. A nice recently introduced safety feature is the brake override system, there to help if you should accidentally hit brake and throttle pedal at the same time. In that situation, the car will automatically choose the safer braking option. Mindful of the improvements made by rivals when it comes to running costs, Mitsubishi has worked hard in recent times to improve the Shogun's fuel and CO2 efficiency. Now, that's no small task given the weight of this vehicle, but a package in 2010 of efficiency improvements did move things forward quite a bit. That saw a long wheelbase automatic 7-seater model return 33.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out 224 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's in auto form. The manual version managed and still does 34.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 213 grams per kilometre of CO2. Go for a short wheelbase 3-door Shogun and you'd probably improve upon those figures by 2 or 3%. It's all been enough to make sure that this Euro 5 compatible Shogun model, the one I'm driving here, is much closer to the kinds of returns offered by its most direct rival, Toyota's Land Cruiser 3-litre D4D. But both models are really still some way off the returns managed by more car-like luxury SUV contenders. What else? Well, service intervals are a bit closer together these days, every 9,000 miles or 12 months, whichever comes first, but buyers do get the option of a very competitively priced Mitsubishi servicing plan. There's also 3 years of unlimited mileage warranty and 3 years of pan-European roadside assistance, plus a 12-year anti-perforation rust cover program. More pluses include depreciation that's offset to a certain extent by the good value upfront asking prices and a steady demand on the used market for this much more practically orientated type of large off-roader. This, after all, is a vehicle that's less subject to the vagaries of fashion than more trendy lifestyle type compact or large 4x4s. And insurance is relatively affordable too, thanks to this Shogun's more mature audience, people who don't tend to park them outside nightclubs. Groupings range between 32 and 34. The Mitsubishi Shogun occupies a small but important niche in an ever-evolving 4x4 market. As sales of the more ostentatious models wane in favour of more environmentally responsible transport, there will remain a core requirement for an all-weather, all-terrain vehicle that can tow, fulfil family responsibilities and not get too precious about things in the process. These are duties that this Shogun discharges with a minimum of drama. This improved fourth generation car brooks no great surprises, but in many ways familiarity has bred respect for Mitsubishi's low-key approach. Solid engineering, a thoughtful compromise between off-road durability and on-road refinement, and value pricing, all combine to make sure that what some people may consider a throwback is in fact a vehicle of keen relevance. I'd be prepared to bet that Shoguns will still be in British dealerships long after Porsche Cayennes and Range Rover Sports are distant memories. Ultimately though, this statistic is probably the most telling one. 7 out of every 10 buyers of this car go on and buy another one. It's easy to see why.